I think it's the hearing room. Do you guys have your speakers on up in Santa Maria?
We don't have our mics on. We have this.
Yeah, this mic is on.
Can you hear that buzzing?
Yes.
Okay, let me check with the TV guys. Hold on. Can you guys turn your mics off real quick?
So I muted. I just muted everybody.
She's having a rough morning. I was Kathy.
I know. Good morning, Kathy. How are you? She gets so much to know. I go, okay, well, Kathy didn't do it.
Director Osborne, can you hear me?
Yes.
You need to leave the computer audio on your iPad. Zoom audio.
If I do, it creates an echo in this room. So
Oh,
I
if you do
usually
it, it
mute
creates that noise?
so that there's no echo either
I
direction.
can't hear.
But I can unmute it when I need to talk if you want me to.
You should not have any audio on your computer or your iPad via Zoom, because you'll hear it through the room. You don't need to have audio on your. So you can go to the settings. Disabled from all fronts. Okay, but we still see a little microphone.
Director Osborne, we're just going to take you out of the Zoom meeting and you can just participate from Santa Maria.
Well, that completely conflicts what I was doing, and
Okay, never mind. Sure.
See, the noise is still there. She's gone. It's... Thank you, Director Osborne, but it wasn't you. It's the room. so you can log back on.
If everybody can still hear, let's persevere. We can handle it. Okay. Why don't you remind us of our procedures and then do the roll call?
Oh,
Or roll call
I'll do
and
the
then
roll
do
call
the
first.
post.
Yes, thank you. Director Hartman,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Avenino,
Here.
Burek,
Here.
Julian, Sierra,
Here.
Osborne,
Here.
Waterfield,
Present.
Parodi, Clark,
Here.
Rouse,
Here.
and Chair Williams.
Here.
Thank you. And just a couple of Zoom reminders. For all the panelists, please remember to mute your mic when you're not speaking. If you'd like to comment, please use the raise your hand button. If you're an attendee, you'll be in listen-only mode. All attendees will remain in listen-only mode unless unmuted by SBCAG staff to provide public comment. Comments from the public are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The public will not be able to share their video or screen. When public comment is called for an agenda item, attendees may use the raise your hand button to express desire to provide public comment for that item, and you will be unmuted when it is your turn. Those calling on the phone can dial *9 to raise your hand.
Great. All right. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comment. Is there any public comment that is not on the agenda? Right, it's
Director
not.
Williams, we have one request for public comment. Mr. Scott Wentz.
This will be interesting. Scott Wens, representing Cars Are Basic. This is a repeated comment that we bring before you on a repeated basis. We have a problem with the organization not enforcing strict standards. In 2016, this organization laid a trap for the Bicycle Coalition and they walked into it. The 2016 Bicycle Master Plan was then adopted by the City Council as an advisory document. We knew that that was never going to last. The City of Santa Barbara over the last 6 years has slowly been referring to the Bicycle Master Plan as a plan, not as an advisory document. As a result, in the last 2 months, the City of Santa Barbara has incorporated a number of street projects into an overall master plan that they are funding. It is no longer an advisory document. That means the City of Santa Barbara, as the council in 2016 admitted, would have to do an EIR for the entire city for the Bicycle Master Plan. They have not done that. By incorporating all of these Vision Zero, street plans, street diet, bulb outs into one major plan, they now are forced by CEQA to do the EIR. They haven't done it. And we keep hammering on it. Your organization should be requiring the City of Santa Barbara to come up with the EIR. We have 3 sitting board members that were on that council: Director Williams, Director Rouse, and Director Hart. They know exactly what I'm saying is 100% true. This type of thing has to stop. To get around an expensive EIR because you don't want to have to do it is not a reason not to obey the law. CEQA demands that EIR. The fact that they've incorporated other street planning into this overall plan now means it's even a greater problem. They haven't done an EIR. So there you go. I hope you will require the City of Santa Barbara, before they get any funding for any of these plans, to do the demanded EIR.
Thank you. We're now to item 4. Is there any items that any member would like to pull or members of the public would like to pull from the consent calendar?
Chair Williams, we have one public comment for item 4C, the Olive Mill and San Ysidro Roundabout.
Okay, let's hear that. And I will, just so that you know, I have to pull 4L and recuse myself from this contract because I'm too close to the 4A segment of the project.
Okay, I'm going to read 4C into the record. 4C, Olive Mill and San Ysidro Roundabouts. 4C1, adopt Resolution 2221, approving cooperative agreement 050413 with Caltrans for the Olive Mill Roundabout and San Ysidro Roundabout projects and acknowledge appropriation of funds. 4C2, approve and authorize the executive director to execute cooperative agreement 050413 with Caltrans for the construction phase of the Olive Mill Roundabout and San Ysidro Roundabout. The total agreement amount is $13,820,000, all from local funds from Measure A and Regional Surface Transportation Program funds from the Highway 101 Reserve. The board must approve additional contributions of Measure A funds for this project if required. 4C3, approve and authorize the chair to execute amendment number 9 to the agreement with Ayers and Associates for public information and community outreach services during construction of the Olive Mill Roundabout and the San Ysidro Roundabout with an increase of $440,000 for a revised total amount not to exceed $2,190,000 without a change in the period of performance ending June 30th, 2023. Mr. Wentz, you want to do public comment?
Chair, members of the board, Scott Wenz representing Cars Are Basic. Once again, we are unrelentingly opposed to both of these roundabouts. They're a safety hazard. If you have a major emergency, as with the Thomas fire and then the flooding afterwards, you're going to have these intersections open. They're going to have to be staging areas. You're going to be putting concrete plugs right in the middle of an intersection that the emergency people do not want. If you want to get a good idea what the emergency people feel, talk to the mutual aid people that come in. They have no political issues in the county. They have no political issues in South County. You talk with their fire and police personnel and they say, absolutely not, don't do it. Let's put this issue of the Olive Mill Roundabout into perspective. The Olive Mill Roundabout was first proposed by the city of Santa Barbara to be between $600,000 to $1 million. They said the reason for this roundabout was because they had one section of a strange intersection that was below Measure C. Everything else was Measure C. The accident report at that intersection was 1/4 of an accident every 6 months. That's not an accident rate. So you have a proposal that was started. It's now over $3 million for that roundabout. I mean, this is a bad plan. And the businesses in the area that don't want to be publicly out against this come to us and say, would you please speak up about it? So you have the issue of the San Ysidro roundabout. You're going to put a plug right in a major road that goes in and out of Upper and Lower Village. You're going to have the same thing at Olive Mill. Don't let anybody come back to say to you in the future when you have a problem that there was an objection and that this organization didn't stand up and say, this is a bad plan.
Any questions or comments from board members? Since it's my district, I will just note that the input that we get from local business owners is overwhelmingly supportive of the roundabouts, partially because of the level of congestion along Coast Village Road affecting the business climate, and partially because anybody who's ever used that intersection knows that it doesn't work as it is. Nobody waits for four other people before them to go through the intersection. So there's substantial benefits for the Olive Mill, and of course, without the San Ysidro one, our modeling indicates there will be queuing on the freeway in the middle of the construction project, which would be very, very, very dangerous. Public safety personnel, especially our fire chiefs and rank and file firefighters are very free with their opinions and have not registered any objections with these design or projects to me or my staff. Okay, can I get a motion on the consent calendar with the exception of 4L?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second. Roll call, please.
Director Hart? Hartman?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Davanino?
Aye.
Urick?
Aye.
Julian?
Aye.
Sierra?
Aye.
Osborne?
Aye.
Waterfield?
Aye.
Parodi?
Let the record show that I need to abstain from 4A minutes. I was absent. Aye for the rest of the consent calendar.
Clark?
Aye.
Rouse?
Aye.
And Chair Williams.
Aye.
Motion
And-
passes 12-0-1.
And I will figuratively pass the gavel to our Vice Chair Osborne for 4L. Again, I would love to participate in this, but my house is very close to the 4A project, so I will recuse myself.
Thank you so very much. Madam Clerk, would you please read 4L into the record?
Thank you, Vice Chair Osborne. 4L, Highway 101 Carpinteria Segment 4A. Approve and authorize the chair to execute amendment number 10 to the agreement with Ayers and Associates for public information and community outreach services during the landscaping project for Highway 101 Carpinteria Segment 4A with an increase of $38,600 for a revised total not to exceed $2,093,205 without a change in the period performance ending June 30th, 2023.
Are there any questions from the board? Are there any public comments on this item?
Vice Chair Osborne, we have no request for public comment.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion.
I move the approval of 4L. Second.
Is that
Been
Director
Moved and seconded.
Director Nelson for the motion?
And
And then who is the second? I'm sorry.
Lavanino.
No, thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Hartman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Davanino,
Aye.
Urick,
Aye.
Julian,
Aye.
Sierra,
Aye.
Osborne,
Aye.
Waterfield,
Aye.
Brody,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Rouse.
Aye.
Motion passes 11-0.
I will now hand the gavel back to Chair Williams.
Thank you so much. Now we're on to item 5.
Item 5, TIFIA loan agreement, indenture and resolution. 5A, receive a presentation on SBCAG's pursuit of a Federal Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act loan. 5B, adopt resolution 2222 to 5B1, adopt a debt management policy governing the issuance of debt by the Santa Barbara County Local Transportation Authority, including the TIFIA loan. 5B2, approve and authorize the issuance of not to exceed $75 million of the Santa Barbara County Local Transportation Authority Senior Sales Tax Revenue Bonds, 2022 TIFIA series, evidencing the authority's obligation to repay the TIFIA loan. 5B3, approve and authorize the execution and delivery of an indenture, a first supplement indenture, and a TIFIA loan agreement. And 5B4, approve and authorize the chair, the executive director, and the clerk of the board to take all necessary actions to complete the above documents. And I need to announce that the staff report, the presentation, and the resolution were updated yesterday to reflect a not to exceed interest rate of 5.5%. I've placed copies in the back of the hearing of both documents.
We have a presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Williams, Director Sarkis Kachek with SBCAG. So for today's item, we are joined by Melissa Schick with K&N Public Finance. They are our TIFIA Financial Advisor, and Russ Trice with Norton Rose, our TIFIA Bond Counsel. As Ms. Contreras noted, we have provided an updated staff report to reflect a change as of yesterday for our not to exceed interest rate for our TIFIA loan. The changes in climate due to world events are impacting us with closing on our TIFIA loan. The prior not to exceed rate stated in the resolution was 4.5%, and the new not to exceed rate is now at 5.5%. Directors, we are coming down the final stretch with closing on our TIFIA loan. And so today we want to give you an update on where we are and what the final steps will be as we close in mid-August on our TIFIA loan with the Build America Bureau. We also recommend your board approve a series of documents for our TIFIA loan, which was noted in the recommendation and which Ms. Schick will provide in her presentation. With that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Ms. Melissa Schick.
Thank you, Sarkis, and good morning, Chair Williams and directors. Pleasure to be here with you again today. And it's exciting because we are, as Sarkis mentioned, kind of at the final stages of closing on your TIFIA loan, which requires your board approval of the documents to do so. So with that, I'll ask you to advance to slide 2, please. Great. So SBCAG, as the Santa Barbara County Local Transportation Authority, will enter into a loan with the U.S. Department of Transportation. And the loan is primarily to fund or advance Measure A funding toward the construction costs of the Highway 101 project, and namely segments 4A through 4C. We anticipate, based on kind of numerous scenarios within the Measure A cash flow model, that borrowing proceeds in and around $70 million will be required to fund kind of peak construction costs for segments 4A through 4C through fiscal 25. However, the resolution before you and the documents for the TIFIA loan agreement will establish a not to exceed borrowing of $75 million. The additional $5 million is to allow for additional cushion to the extent that sales tax revenues decline over the course of the construction period, and additional proceeds are needed to complete the construction of segments 4A through 4C in the time as currently anticipated. Remember, as we've discussed with the board before, that the TIFIA loan is a drawdown loan. So staff will only draw on the loan as needed. And so even if executing a loan in the amount of $75 million, if the additional $5 million is not needed, or the $70 million estimated for that matter, the final amount of the loan may be below that. As we were preparing this presentation, the estimated TIFIA loan rate at the time was 3.57%. As of this morning, the TIFIA loan rate is 3.68%. But as the board is likely well familiar, Friday's CPI release has sent kind of the rate markets as well as the equity markets into a tailspin. And over the course of this week, both treasuries and tax exempt rates have experienced a tremendous amount of volatility. So to provide for sufficient interest rate cushion between now and when the chair and the executive execute documents to close on the TIFIA loan, we are proposing a not to exceed interest rate of 5.5%, which we are hopeful that the final borrowing rate would be well below that. The TIFIA loan will accrue interest as drawn over the construction period 2025. Both principal and interest will be repaid on the amount borrowed through the end of the Measure A tax, which is fiscal 2040. And then finally, the loan can be repaid or actually refinanced at any time without penalty. Next slide. So this just slide is to map borrowing rates under the TIFIA loan, really kind of over the last year when staff and the board have been kind of collectively following the progress of the TIFIA loan pursuit. Over the last year, the average rate, borrowing rate for SBCAG's TIFIA loan has been approximately 2.25%. However, recent increases, and really namely starting at the start of this year, rates just have continued to trend upwards, averaging approximately a 30 basis point increase month over month. And so, as I mentioned at the time of preparing this presentation, the rate was 3.57. And as of this morning, the TIFIA loan rate, if we were to close on the loan this morning, would be 3.68%. Next slide. Because debt service within the Measure A program will come off kind of the top of the Measure A distribution to both jurisdictions as well as to projects, we felt it was important for your board to see kind of the final estimated TIFIA loan repayment structure anticipated between now and the end of the tax. In previous discussions, we have shown kind of a level annual repayment period in every year, which has since been adjusted and revised due to USDOT policy requiring that more TIFIA loan repayment period principal occur earlier in the repayment schedule than as previously structured. So as you'll see here, we anticipate in fiscal 26 through fiscal 2030 will be the peak debt service period. And then following that repayment, repayment will step down to in and around 5 million annually. And this change in structure, staff has been engaged with TTAC and has reviewed this new structure with TTAC, so they are aware of the changes. Next slide. So we've kept the board abreast of the milestones completed over the course of the TIFIA loan process, which has in large part been driven by the due diligence requirement on the project as well as the Measure A program from the Bureau and the U.S. Department of Transportation. So there's been a tremendous amount of effort both on Caltrans as well as SBCAG staff providing follow-up to a number of the Bureau's due diligence requests. We've also primarily negotiated the loan agreements with the USDOT, as well as established the underlying legal documentation to place Measure A tax, the repayment on the loan. So now we're in a position to seek your board approval of executing the TIFIA loan, which we are hopeful will be complete by mid-August based on certain timelines at the Bureau to review SBCAG's final application for the TIFIA loan, as notification application being complete and accepted. Subsequent to that notification, we then can move swiftly to finalize documents and lock in the TIFIA loan rate, as well as close on the TIFIA loan. And I know staff will be reporting back to your board when that process is complete and can provide what the actual TIFIA loan rate and actual debt service schedules at that time. So with that concludes presentation, and it back to in the room.
Any questions from the board?
We have one up here.
Yes. Hi, this is Etta Waterfield. When you lock in the interest rate, that's only good for a certain amount of period. Is that correct or not?
The interest rate that would be locked in at close is fixed through the term of the loan.
Okay, so there's not a 30-day, if we lock in today, it'll take us all the way through August?
No, we will lock in the rate in August at the close of the loan.
Oh.
So right now,
Can't do it
the
now.
rate, yeah, exactly. And I think that was the driver behind having kind of a not to exceed interest rate that will allow for sufficient cushion to changes in interest rates between now and August.
So if the interest rates go over 5.5%, is this loan not going to go through? Do we start all over again?
It's not that the loan wouldn't go through, but staff would have to return to your board to seek approval to lock in a rate above 5.5%. We feel pretty strongly that the final rate will be below 5.5%, such that staff would not need to return to the board for approval. But yeah, so right
Okay.
now the resolution allows for staff to execute documents such that only if the interest rate is below the 5.5%.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Chair Williams, if I could add on. So thank you, Melissa, for the response. And Director Waterfield, the Build America Bureau does provide the opportunity for agencies to potentially refinance on their loan. So if we see that the interest rates do decline over time, we will have the opportunity to go back to them and ask for a lower rate through refinancing.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Public comment?
Chair Williams, we received no request for public comment.
Then I will bring it back to the board for decision making. Is there a motion?
Move staff. Menino move staff recommendation.
Second.
Hartman seconds.
Motion by Lavanino. We're going to give Mr. Rouse the second. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Director Hartman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Lavanino,
Aye.
Uhrig,
Aye.
Julian,
Aye.
Sierra,
Aye.
Osborne,
Aye.
Waterfield,
Aye.
Harody,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Rouse,
Aye.
and Chair Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. Let's rush to get it done before it's too late. Okay, item 6, US 101 Multimodal Corridor Plan.
Thank you. Item 6, Draft Santa Barbara US 101 Multimodal Corridor Plan. 6A, receive a presentation on Draft Santa Barbara US 101 Multimodal Corridor Plan and provide comment on the draft plan. 6B, hold a public hearing for the draft plan. Chair Williams, I have someone with their hand raised. Mr. Becker, I'm going to let you go ahead and talk.
Mr. Becker,
No,
it's not public comment on item 6.
I wanted to make sure that's what he wanted to do. Okay, I'm just, Mr. Becker, if you want to do public comment, we'll unmute you. We'll unmute you when it's time for public comment, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maya, please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Maya Kulkarni, and I am a transportation planner at SBCAG. And today I will be presenting the draft Santa Barbara US 101 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan, along with Fred Luna, Director of Project Delivery and Construction. So the purpose of today's hearing is for SBCAG to present the draft corridor plan to the public and get public input. We want to find out what is important to you as members of the community and to identify your issues and concerns. So traffic issues have caused delays on the 101, which are expected to increase by 2040. This leads to increased air pollution, increased traffic diverting onto the local roads, and decreased quality of life for communities between major commute areas. To address these issues, the 101 in Motion corridor study was conducted in 2008 that identified the lane and train long-term solution to relieving congestion. And then in 2019, SBCAG adopted the hybrid corridor plan, which was required for, as part of California Transportation Commission guidelines to apply for the Solutions for Congested Corridors program. And the program helped fund part of the 4th phase of the 101 improvements that were established by the 101 in Motion study, as well as prioritized by voters through Measure A. So now, in order to fund the rest of the US 101 corridor, we're updating the plan to align with CTC guidelines and show how the 101 projects align with regional and state goals to relieve congestion and reduce emissions. So about $250 million is available per year, and the CTC is expected to conduct a 2-year call for projects with applications this fall. And so adopting the updated corridor plan makes SBCAG eligible to apply for the next cycle of SB1 funding for Solutions for Congested Corridors program this fall. And SBCAG will also be looking to co-apply with Caltrans to fully fund the Santa Barbara US 101 multimodal corridor with our application. So in this new draft, we didn't change any of the priorities that were established in the 101 in Motion study. We just updated the 2019 hybrid corridor plan to align with the CTC guidelines. Like I said before, to be eligible for SB1 funding. So the existing efforts are still the same. Key updates to the plan include adding a discussion on SBCAG's public outreach efforts that have led to the development of this draft plan. And that includes efforts from 101 in Motion, Measure A program, and the Regional Transportation Plan. It also shows how the corridor projects align with local, regional, and state goals for climate, congestion, and equity by explaining how they relate to various plans. It also describes how SBCAG will evaluate the 101 projects and measure their impacts on the environment, mobility, equity, safety and health, and the economy. And then lastly, it provides an updated list of SBCAG's current broadband and congestion relief efforts along the 101 corridor, which Fred will expand on a little more on the next slides.
Hey, I'll pick it up from here. Thank you, Maya, and good morning, directors. Fred Luna with SBCAG staff. So you heard about why we're doing the corridor plan update, and you can see that SBCAG and Caltrans were well ahead of the curve in developing multimodal corridor plans with the 101 in Motion study that was done in 2006, and now this type of corridor plan has become a requirement for funding, as Maya indicated, from these state programs. And so implementation of those elements in the corridor plan extends, many of them have been completed, many are still underway. And then what we're going to focus on today is just those remaining elements that we're going to be seeking funding for. So we have a little profile of each of the components that have been identified for inclusion in our upcoming SB1 applications. Starting with what you see here is the Highway 101 segment 4D South. So segment 4D is the Montecito area. And as we've reported to the board previously, we've worked with Caltrans closely to advance portions of the 4D segment between Olive Mill and San Isidro, and even down to Oak Creek through an infusion of SHOP money that Caltrans has contributed, plus some Measure A matching funds. And so in cycle 3 and in other programs that we're seeking funding for, we're looking to fund the remaining elements of 4D, 4D South, with the primary components is adding a carpool lane and then providing that improvements at 3 creek bridges and ramp improvements and safety improvements on the corridor itself. That's 4D South. Next slide, please. So along with our package in this area is another project called the Coastal Access Connector between Sheffield and Ortega Hill Road. So right now we're under construction. You can see, if you're not familiar with this area, the photo on the right where the dashed line is, that indicates the path of a connection that SBCAG would work with Caltrans and the county to implement and get funded is between Sheffield Drive and the existing Ortega Hill Class 1 bikeway. So there was a desire to make improvements to improve safety for bicyclists in this area. And this connection will provide that gap in the that exists in the California Coastal Trail and enhance the Pacific Bikeway Network. So that's one of the projects we're seeking funding for in the next cycle. Next slide. There's also a project to delve into transit improvements to kind of continue to make those online improvements when the HOV lanes come online to improve that transit performance. And so one of the things we're looking at is to replace aging diesel powered buses with electric buses, and then also integrate some contactless card readers on those new buses as well to improve onboarding and for ease of payment. Next slide. So, and then we're moving back into the highway components. And so the last segment to the north is the segment in the city of Santa Barbara. That has been broken up into 2 subsegments. So you can see on the map on the left, there's a rectangle that highlights what we're calling 4E South. And part of the purpose of this is to create more fundable and flexible funding segments that give the people that will be making funding decisions the most flexibility to award funds to SBCAG and Caltrans to deliver this project. So 4E South extends further north from Olive Mill up to the Cabrillo Interchange. It is a separate independent utility, has independent utility. So this could be delivered separately in case we wouldn't get funding for other components of 4E. It makes improvements at Hermosillo Road and online improvements on the freeway to add that carpool lane as throughout the entire corridor. And then there'll be a deceleration lane at Hermosillo Road, as if many of you have taken that does come around a corner and there's a kind of sight distance issues in that area. So there'll be some drainage improvements, and currently there's a proposal to include sound walls, though we're having those discussions with the city of Santa Barbara as well as we're going through the coastal permit process. Next slide. Then included along the entire corridor is looking at adding zero emission charging stations to increase locations where people can charge their zero emission vehicles. And we're looking to synergize those efforts through a planning study with other local improvements that are going on, parking improvements that may be conducted in finding those locations. So this work has just commenced, and looking to fund that to create that range and to prevent that range anxiety that people may have when they undertake their trips. Next slide. This slide documents a project we would work with the city of Santa Barbara on, the Highway 101 project team. There's a number of improvements the city's identified to promote and enhance bicycle and pedestrian safety and access. And you can see in the map on the left that the locations anywhere from bicycle boulevard enhancements, sidewalk gap closures, and some lighting to improve safety in these neighborhoods and increase connectivity down to the beach. Next slide. And then the last segment, I believe, is the remaining segment, the Cabrillo Interchange and 4E North. So basically from Hermosillo up through Sycamore Creek, again, adding that last element of carpool lanes and reconstructing the Cabrillo Interchange, which one of the major components is adding back that 101 southbound on-ramp at Cabrillo, and then removing the existing left-hand ramps that exist at Cabrillo Boulevard. So that will be a large and independent project that needs to be constructed. And that will be coordinated as well with other improvements that the city's undertaking, which I think are described on the next slide. Yes, so there's improvements that the city of Santa Barbara is working on with the railroad, with SBCAG and Caltrans to replace two pictures. The bottom picture shows the Cabrillo undercrossing structure, which in its current condition only has width for 2 vehicle lanes and minor shoulders. And so the idea is to replace that to accommodate improvements for all kinds of modes, both vehicles, accessing local streets, accessing the freeway, bicycles. You can see the class 1 and class 2 bike paths, and then pedestrians and transit. There's a bus pull out there on the bottom left. So that will all be coordinated as part of that project. And then another part of that is to, and in coordination with the 101 work, remove the structure at the Los Patos undercrossing, which is can be a safety issue at times with the low vertical clearance. That's being no longer going to be a southbound off ramp when the 101's done, and then there was no need for that to exist as a road underneath there. So Union Pacific would like the city to replace that structure and fill it in and then place new track on top of there. So that is that is part of the scope that's looked at for the city to complete. Next slide. And then I'll hand it back to Maya to talk about how we're closing this out.
Thank you. So for next steps, we'll review the comments from the public hearings and incorporate them into the final plan, which we will bring back here to be adopted in July. If there are any additional comments, they can still be submitted until June 22nd, either by mail or by emailing info@sbcag.org. The draft is on the SBCAG website, on the Documents tab, and under the Projects and Programs. And with that, we can take any comments.
Questions from the board? Is there a public comment?
Yes, we have one public comment, Mr. Tom Becker. Go ahead and.
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Thank you. Just want to remind you, the state of California is the
Mr. Becker, we can't hear you. Your audio is disconnected.
project applicant for the HOV lanes, which has the goal of reducing VMT by 22% by the year 2045. The HOV lanes that you are currently building are going to induce VMT, an increase in VMT. They're going to induce it. That's already in the EIR for this project. So if you continue to put in HOV lanes on this project, if the applicant continues it with the HOV lanes, the applicant is actually conflicting with its own VMT reduction goal in its 2022 climate action plan. Now, the applicant could turn the HOV lanes into transit lanes. That would prevent a VMT inducement of VMT into this project. And you can achieve your level of service goal by reducing VMT on this project 25% by 2020, by the year 2020 from a 2014 baseline, and 50% by 2040. That VMT reduction was an alternative proposed for the HOV lanes back in the SEIR. Caltrans, the applicant, refused to consider that alternative, which is a violation of CEQA. And all of this right now, this project and the applicant's attempt to get their clean cars, I know this is very complex, but at this point, get down to the bottom line. This is all before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the DC Circuit concerning the applicant's emission waiver for its Clean Car 2 Advanced Clean Car Program, which is the electric vehicle program. The applicant first must prove that it's reduced VMT in the state by 25% by 2030 and 50% by 2040 before it can enact its Clean Cars 2 regulation. And this project has actually been submitted to the state suing EPA as an example of how the applicant is refusing to reduce VMT and is violating rules in the process. Very complex initially until you figure out how everything is linked. And remember, this is US EPA, California Air Resources Board, Caltrans. This is all linked together in a big giant program. And this project is specifically being shown as how the applicant, the state of California, is refusing to reduce VMT and violating CEQA in the process.
Mr. Becker, you're over your time.
Thank you.
Chair Williams, we have one more public comment, Mr. Scott Wentz.
Mr. Wentz?
Chair, members of the board, Scott Wentz representing Cars Are Basic. Let's go back to Naomi Schwartz and the original bicycle path over Ortega Ridge. We objected to it. We said it was a stupid plan, that it would not work. We've been proven correct. Number two, the bicycle path was put on the wrong side of the hill, which has already been proven through various items of slides during El Nino years. Matter of fact, it took, I believe it was $45,000 to clean off that bike path after Ortega Ridge slumped over and came down onto the bike path. The bike path situation going up to Sheffield is a waste of time because you don't have bicyclists using it. We've had board members who lived on Jameson Lane area and the lower village who did our bike counts for us repeatedly year after year. The number of bicyclists went down when it came to the workforce people, yet it went up on weekends for the bicycle clubs because they loved that because they could do their riding. Now, you're talking about a multimodal plan here that isn't working. The city of Santa Barbara, by its own insistence for the design changes of the railroad bridge at Cabrillo, has done away with the necessity for the Los Patos roundabout, which they're going to come to you for money. I mean, it builds upon itself. Naomi Schwartz asked for it. Salud Carbajal backed it. It hasn't worked. The amount of bicycle usage has gone down in South County. It is no longer an issue for multimodal and alternative transportation because of epidemiology. You folks are not listening. I have talked to some of the top epidemiologists in North America. I've been to international conferences. I've given them statistics from this area without describing where the area was or any prejudicial stuff. I said, if you have these numbers, is this working? They said no. And one of the epidemiologists, she had a PhD in mathematics, and that's a scary PhD to have. Those people think on an entirely different level. And she comes back immediately and says, absolutely not. We had a board member for Cars Are Basic who was one of the top physicists in North America, was a DOD black box guy. He joined CAB because of the ridiculousness of the bicycles as alternative transportation. You have to start listening to what's going on here. You're spending money on bad projects. The outcomes are not meeting goals.
It's to the board. Board member comments? Let's try from the north. How about from Zoom? Well, I you know, as chair, I just can't let it all go by. The history of transportation really shows that in the long run, we ought to hedge our bets. We ought to put not all of our money and all of our resources in one mode of transportation because things change. This, I think, plan recognizes that we have multimodal forms of transportation. Some are used more than others, but that differentiation might change over time. I mean, to me, the most obvious change that could take place if we play our cards right is on the service of the Coastal Express. It already has a very high fare box return. It already is a very popular service. You know, you can, I've used it. You can use the internet. You can take your bikes or surfboard now. That was something I complained about once upon a time. You got to be able to take surfboards. The service already is very fast. It's only a little bit slower than driving. But once there's an HOV lane, it's going to be substantially faster than driving as as a lone car during peak periods. And so, a lot of folks who, want to go faster, want to save some money on gas, want to be able to contribute to community solutions will take the Coastal Express. It's already one that has reached far beyond transit-dependent riders. And we need to, I think, really work with VCTC to make that the maximal opportunity as we open up that corridor. The pedestrian and bicycle improvements in it are also, I think, will be helpful and will be used. When we went to DC last week, we have one slide on these charging stations. And for us, it's kind of like ho-hum, whatever. We always do that stuff anyway, right? For them, almost everybody that we talked about was like, oh, you put that in the plan? That's really smart. That's where we're wanting to go. To the folks in DC that some of which may be involved in whether or not we get funding, this was a really powerful thing to have in the plan. And by the way, I encourage folks that are more involved in the weeds of locations to really look at street public right of way. The city has put a lot in their lots, but there's very few on the street, and we don't have any on the street in the county yet. But we want to have our staff work with you to provide that in areas where there would be demand. I think there would clearly be demand in Summerlin. We obviously also have parks and parking lots. So we have land and locations where it might be advantageous for the corridor, and more than that, advantageous for our constituents and the taxpayer. With that, can I get a motion on the plan? Unless there's further comment.
It's not an action item.
Oh, okay, this is not an action item. Okay, let's move on to item 7, 1-minute reports. You have any takers? Come on, Holly, help. Let's.
Actually, I'm trying to raise my hand.
Okay, all right. See, I can read your mind.
We got this close, Gus. We totally sync together now. Yeah, I want to thank the board and staff for the trip to DC. I've never moved so quickly in my life from meeting to meeting to meeting. I think we had a 20-minute lunch at one point. It was incredible going from being the mayor of Buellton to being in DC asking for support for a $265 million grant and broadband money. And Margie Sarkis and Don Gilchrist took such good care of Doss and I. And I just wanted to say thank you. It was the trip of a lifetime. And we've already got a letter of support from Senator Feinstein's office. So I think we made a difference. We really worked hard to promote 101 and broadband. And I just wanted to thank staff and the board very much for the opportunity. And thank you, Doss.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Well, we all know that it's always a pleasure working with Holly Sierra, but it was especially one where we were eating 3 meals a day and going from meeting to meeting to meeting. Felt like a really productive one in terms of gathering information and in terms of trying to influence decision makers. Any other?
Yep.
I have a report here from Mr. Rouse.
Actually, excuse me. Mr. Julian's had his hand up. For a
Okay,
while.
let's go to Mr. Julian. Just because I can see Mr. Rouse, I shouldn't give him preferential treatment.
That's good. Thank you. I just wanted to thank Supervisor Hartman, Supervisor Lavanino, and also salute Carvajal for attending our reopening of Leroy Park there in Guadalupe on June the 12th. It was we served about 1,000 meals that was provided by Taylor Farms, and I just wanted to let Steve know that he challenged the barbecuers from the Knights of Columbus and Guadalupe, and he forgets that back in 1958 the Far Western opened up, and Clarence Panetti and Dickey Moretti actually created the barbecue that Santa Maria stole from Guadalupe. So we appreciate him attending, and also salute, and also Supervisor Hartman. So thank you.
I smell a barbecue off in the making.
You got it.
Mayor Rouse.
And then we stole it from you guys. It was great. Public Works Department, City of Santa Barbara, we've got some ATP grants what we've applied for Cliff Drive, the west side, and Milpas, totaling $54 million in ATP grants to a total project cost with a city match of $65 million. And we're going to be doing an interim hearing on our interim State Street operations on June 28th. So that should be a rather lively meeting. Lots of opinions about that one. Hopefully we get an update on the Wither State Street. And at some point in time, we're going to have, I don't know what the date is, SBCAG staff is going to present in front of council. Hopefully they told you about that. But That'll be great. It'll catch up on everything that's been going on with SBCAG. Thank you.
Director Williams, Paula Purdy Director Purdy has her hand up.
Let's have an update from Goleta.
Well, I'm just going to be very quick here. A lot of exciting things happening, but I want to invite all of you, if you're in the good land this evening, we have our Fiesta Ranchera at Stowe House. We haven't been able to do that for many years, so it'll have a lot of great food and entertainment and seeing people maybe you haven't seen in a long time. So come on over and enjoy if you're in the area. Thank you.
Director Uri would like to speak.
Director Urig.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Williams. As Mayor Perotti was inviting folks, I just wanted to, for tonight, this Saturday, June 18th, will be our Juneteenth celebration here in Solvang, celebrating the many contribute. For us, it's more a celebration of celebrating the many contributions of the Black and African American residents and businesses that we have here in the Valley. There will be, I think, a barbecue and live music and dancing going on in Solvang Park starting at 4 o'clock. Next week is kind of a big week in Solvang, the 22nd, Wednesday, along with our normal farmers market. We'll have our first music in the park starting from 5 to 8, and Friday the 24th we will have a Pierce Arrow car show during the day from 9 to 4, and then that'll be our first movies in the park starting that Friday again in Solvang Park. And then Saturday the 25th we'll be celebrating our Pride Month celebration and having a Pride Day with a parade as well in Solvang, and just like to welcome everybody to come out. Thank you.
I'll
Chairman Williams.
Yeah, but before I move on to you, I would just want to say that, this is what I love about the residents of Santa Barbara County. When I went to the legislature, I would compare notes with my colleagues, and none of them have as many parades and parties as we do. We are by usually twice as much more parties and parades than any other part of the state. Please proceed.
Yeah, I would just offer to Mayor Urig that if you're barbecuing there, you may want to contact Guadalupe. From what I understand, they have some awesome barbecue, and you may have a challenge there on your hands, Mayor Julian. So I know I'm planning a barbecue. I've invited the mayor, and it is actually through the Kiwanis Club of Guadalupe. So I'm going to get to enjoy some of that great barbecue. But we did have Supervisor Hartman and I had a great time out at the Leroy Park grand opening, rededication, and as I said, there is no community that I've seen in this county that works together as well as the city of Guadalupe with its residents. It's been a real honor and I know it was for Supervisor Hartman to represent that area. It's a beautiful little community with a great spirit and a great community.
Thank you.
Any further reports? Let's go on to the executive director's report.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairperson, members of the board. First of all, I want to thank the Director Williams and Sierra for the Washington, D.C. legislative trip. As they indicated, we had a very productive time there, and I want to thank them for enduring the weather that we experienced. The best thing about going to D.C., it makes you really appreciate coming back to Santa Barbara. I want to also comment on Director Rouse's point about the presentation that we're making in the city of Santa Barbara. That will be August 16th. We'll be giving a presentation on the 101 project and the upcoming work that we're anticipating. I want to let the board know that Aaron Bonifilio, our new Rail and Transit Director for SBCAG, has started. He's just started this past Monday, and he's here in the room, so he can raise his hand and to the right behind me, so people on Zoom can see him. Wait, go this way. Okay, and we also have another intern starting. Dae-Jung Chung will be joining the SBCAG team next month as the planning and public outreach intern to support our implementation of the regional early action planning grants that are coming. So there's a lot of work there with public outreach, and we felt it would give an opportunity for a new up and coming planning type person to get some experience at SBCAG. And please join me in congratulating Mike Becker, our Director of Planning, upon his graduation from the California Academy for Regional Leadership Program. It's offered by the California Association of Council of Governments, and he's our second graduate. Sarkis had graduated a couple of years ago, and Mike went through the program this past year. It's about an 8-month-long program, expanding their leadership skills and knowledge of systems that impact our regional agencies and help them build a statewide network of professional contacts. Okay, and I also want to give a plug to our Highway 101 Carpool Lane opening event that's taking place tomorrow. This actually this project started in April of 2020, right after the pandemic started, and is about 8 months ahead of schedule. Usually these types of projects takes about 3 years, so we're 8 months to a year ahead of schedule. I'm really proud of that, and we're under budget and doing very well. It's first of a kind carpool lane for Santa Barbara County. I know we all experienced the carpool lane from Ventura County up to our county, but that's not in Santa Barbara County, so this is the first one in our county. The event will feature our local and interregional transit systems that are coming up through the corridor and the benefits of the inclusion of the carpool lanes to help them relieve traffic congestion in the area by improving transit ridership and ride sharing and lessening emissions and helping the commuters save some money. This was funded by our $184 million grant that we got from SB1 back in 2018. So that was a good time, and obviously we're in construction for the other segments as well. So, and it just happens to be National Dump the Pump Day tomorrow. So we're celebrating our carpool lane and transit all in one, and we can tell people to dump the pump and take transit, and it'll be hopefully a lot faster for them to get through the Carpinteria area for now, and then ultimately all the way up to Santa Barbara. So with that, I'll pass it back over to the chair and conclude my report.
Any questions for the executive director on her report?
Chair Williams, Mr. Becker has his hand raised. I need to see what he would like to say.
Public comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Becker.
Thank you. I'm going to mention this again. This directly goes to what the executive director just said about the 101 HOV project in her own report. The state of California, and I don't know if you people are even aware that the state of California is doing this through the California Air Resources Board, they have proposed the draft 2022 Climate Action Plan. In that plan, there were 4 options, and they took option number 3. Option number 3 calls for a 22% reduction in vehicle miles traveled statewide by 2045. Well, I do know that the EIR for that HOV project says that the HOV project, the HOV lane, is going to induce VMT onto that segment of the highway. That 100% conflicts with the CARB's intent to reduce VMT 22% by 2045. California Air Resources Board and the California Department of Transportation and Caltrans, Coastal Commission, they're all the same entity, different components of the entity. So you have the applicant for the 101 project saying that you got to reduce VMT on that roadway by 22% by 2045, but their own EIR says it's going to increase. So the executive director is going to have to explain how they're going to reduce VMT by 2045, 22% with that HOV lane. You have to explain that. You can't just let that go. And this is important because this is actually pending before a U.S. Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. So you can't just close your eyes and pretend that this doesn't exist. That climate action plan exists, and you're going to have to explain how you're going to comply with it. Thank you.
Chair Williams, Director Hartman would like to speak.
Director Hartman.
Thank you. This is, excuse me, just a question for our executive director. The county is now meeting back and forth in post-COVID in Santa Maria and in Santa Barbara, and the APCD is meeting back and forth. So I just wondered when we would start doing that through SBCAG.
Mr. Chairperson, members of the board, I will consult with the chair about the meeting location moving forward, but we do have the flexibility to meet at either location per our calendar. So I will work with the chair to schedule those meetings.
Thank you. And if there is a great desire to change the format than what we do, and let me know. Obviously I can't coordinate with more than a majority of you, but if some of you send me an email, that's fine.
There is a desire from Santa Maria, definitely.
Okay, I'm going to just ask a question since it's Dump the Pump Day, and just in case people need more of an incentive to look at buying a used or current electric car. Of course, they can take advantage of the 3CE incentive, the SCE incentive, the state incentive, and the federal incentive. But I wanted to ask what, if you have an electric car with certain color stickers, can you take the carpool lane? Do you know which stickers? So I think we need to answer this question because some of the older stickers, I think, no longer can do it, but most of the newer stickers can, but I don't know what the colors all mean. So
we'll have to get back to you on that.
Great.
Unless Caltrans knows the answer to that question.
Yeah, well, I bet Caltrans does. So if they're about to give their report, so we'll just maybe hold that question. With that, I will move to the Caltrans report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Members, John Olanick, Caltrans District 5. I don't have an exact answer for the stickers, but it does bring back memories of my late 90s, early 2000s time working with California Highway Patrol when electric vehicles were first coming out and the Interstate 80 HOV lane was being developed and the concept of a free ride in the HOV lane was discussed. So it's a good question to ask, and we'll definitely work with the staff and the chair to be able to bring back a suitable answer for you. But I'm glad to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity to report. Just a couple brief items. Wanted to mention point to a reminder of one of our recent media releases about pavement work along Highway 154. That's going to take place on the overnight hours, continuing for the next few months. Various locations between Cold Springs Canyon Bridge and the San Antonio Creek Bridge. The closures will be again at night. Travelers can expect traffic control from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Monday through Friday, and delays are hopefully expected not to exceed 15 minutes. Also, 154 off-ramp at the 192 intersection in Santa Barbara, that will be closed for paving on Thursday, June 16th, which is today, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So some good work going on to maintain our facilities and keep the ride smooth and safe for everyone. Appreciated the discussion about the event tomorrow, the ribbon cutting ceremony, June 17th, 10:30 at the northbound on-ramp, Casitas Pass Road. Some of our team is glad to be there and participate in the festivities. It's just this project and getting this milestone is a big deal. It's a great mission accomplished, and it demonstrates the strength of our partnership as well as our commitment to SB1 funding. So we're glad to be a part of that as well. So those are just a few of my brief comments, and thank you again for the time to be here.
Any questions from board members? Oh, and Director Curran has a point as well.
Director Williams, we have an answer to the question.
Right.
The stickers, the decal colors is yellow, blue, orange, and purple are still allowed to ride in the carpool lane with the electric vehicle.
Great.
Yellow, blue, orange, purple.
So for those commuters out there, yeah, it's a good incentive. Not that, $6 a gallon gas isn't a good incentive, but, I know it's a little more upfront, sometimes even with incentives, but for a long run, it's a good way to insulate yourself from inflation. I usually spend between a dollar and at most $2 a gallon equivalent for electricity. So that's a good way if you're barely making it in Santa Barbara like most of us. Any questions for Caltrans?
Chair Williams, Mr. Becker has his hand raised.
Okay. I think we do questions of board members before we do public comment.
Right.
So
That's what
any other questions of Caltrans from the board members?
I didn't see any hands.
Okay, public comment.
Go ahead,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Becker.
I'm asking anybody on your board or any member of the administration at SBCAG, why don't you ask Caltrans how they plan to reduce vehicle miles traveled on the 101 freeway between Carpinteria or the county line, Ventura County line, and Santa Barbara? How are you going to reduce vehicle miles traveled by 22% by 2045? Is any one of you even interested in asking Caltrans that question? Remember, Caltrans is the applicant on that HOV project. Caltrans is the state of California. So is the Air Resources Board. It's the same entity, the same applicant. The applicant said in their draft 2022 Climate Action Plan, we're going to reduce VMT statewide 22% from a 2019 baseline by 2045. The EIR for that HOV project clearly states that this project is going to induce VMT with little or no reduction overall in VMT from other mitigations. They're going to have to reduce VMT by 22% from a 2019 baseline by 2045. Their own ER says that that's not going to happen with this project, and not a single one of you is asking Caltrans how they're going to achieve that VMT reduction with those HOV lanes. That is a critical part of the climate action plan that they want to, that the state's planning to adopt. And they're adopting, actually, the option that they're adopting is one of the milder options. People are asking the state to adopt an even stricter standard for VMT reduction. I'm even doing that, submitting public comments to California Air Resources Board on this. So why don't somebody there, out of 15 people that could ask Caltrans a question, ask them, how are you going to reduce VMT on Highway 101 in the project area 22% by 2045? Ask Caltrans that question. Because remember, Caltrans is the applicant who said that they're going to do that. Ask them how they're going to do it. Thank you.
Any further from board members? Seeing none, we will move to committee meetings reports. We only have one committee meeting, I think, that for a report. That's Director Julian for Calvans. Director Julian?
I apologize. I was unable to attend, so I have no report.
Okay. And that means we have no report on communications. So we will adjourn this meeting to Thursday, July 21st, 2022. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.